Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and I think Microsoft wants to stop making Xboxes. Some new leaks are suggesting that Microsoft is planning to release some of their prized exclusive titles on PlayStation, and Microsoft has come out and confirmed that they're planning to share their vision of the future of Xbox next week. Ominous. We'll dive deep into this topic today, but we'll also talk about the latest Diablo 4 drama and about the upcoming book that is an exposé on the rise and fall of Blizzard Entertainment. Now, I normally post my weekly news wrap-up videos on Saturdays, but I'm leaving today for a business trip to Europe. I look forward to sharing more about that with you folks in the near future. Stay tuned. Now, before I move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, NordVPN. A VPN is an important tool for keeping your data secure and encrypted on the internet. And I don't dare connect to public Wi-Fi without first enabling my VPN. Be it on a phone or a laptop, in an internet or at a cafe, I turn on my protection before connecting to that public Wi-Fi, because you never know who may be snooping around trying to steal your personal data. Because that Wi-Fi network named Cafe Free Wi-Fi, that could be anyone using their phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot to trick you into connecting to them. So turn on your VPN, now your data is getting encrypted before it's going out. You can also use a VPN to get around region block content by picking a server in a different country. And NordVPN has thousands of servers worldwide. And it's so user-friendly that you're basically just one click away from hiding your IP or browsing the web from a different country. And one account lets you connect up to 6 devices, be they computers, phones, tablets, you name it. So take control of your internet experience today with NordVPN. Right now, you can get an exclusive deal and 4 additional months when you use my link, nordvpn.com/Rhykker. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/RHYKKER, or click the link in the description below. All right, diving into our first story. Rumors are heating up that Microsoft may be giving up the war against Sony. Reports have been emerging from different leaks at The Verge, the Xbox Era podcast, and Giant Bomb that Microsoft plans to bring Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, Starfield, Gears of War, and Halo, and even the upcoming Indiana Jones games to PlayStation. This after making a big stink about acquiring studios like Bethesda and planning to start pumping out exclusives in the future. The PS5 release of Starfield is rumored to come after the release of the Shattered Space expansion on Xbox and PC. Shattered Space doesn't have a release date beyond 2024. According to the leaks, there was a fierce internal debate at Microsoft about this shift in strategy. And because of the court case with the FTC over acquiring Activision Blizzard, a lot of documents were made public, including figures on how much money was being left on the table by not releasing a title on PS5. Previously, it seemed as though that lost income was justified by the belief that they would move more console units, but it seems that's not been the case. It certainly doesn't help that Starfield is no Skyrim. It feels as though Microsoft really expected Starfield to be a generation-defining game that would get all the PS5 fans to buy an Xbox, but that clearly hasn't panned out. Now, after Xbox just spent $69 billion to buy Activision Blizzard, and had to promise 10 years of Call of Duty on PlayStation, it feels like Microsoft is just giving up on fighting Sony altogether. It's no secret that PlayStation has outsold Xbox for a couple generations now, but this was supposed to be Xbox's big comeback. And what's funny is that when Microsoft was making all these big power plays, buying up studios, grabbing Bethesda, grabbing Activision Blizzard, everyone was upset that games from all these studios would now probably not come to PS5, that these were plays for exclusives in order to get more people to buy Xboxes, but now Xbox fans are upset that there's basically no reason to buy an Xbox anymore, if the strategy is shifting entirely to non-exclusivity. And I mean, they're not wrong. If nothing will be exclusive to the Xbox, and PlayStation will continue to have exclusives, which obviously they will, why buy an Xbox? Microsoft is basically telling us to just buy a PlayStation. Now, it is possible that the angle Microsoft will take is a limited time exclusivity, say 1 year of exclusivity before releasing on PlayStation. GTA, for instance, has proven that you get to double dip on sales when you have some period of exclusivity before releasing on PC. PlayStation players may not want to wait a year to play really hot titles, so they may get the game on PC first, especially with controller support being basically a given on PC at this point. But note that Xbox was left out of this conversation entirely. We're still talking about a future in which you own a PC and a PlayStation with no reason to own an Xbox. And that's what's getting people worried. If Microsoft just gives up on the war against Sony, then they're likely planning an exit from the console market entirely. We may see a repeat of what happened with Sega. Sega, which emerged as a fierce competitor to Nintendo back in the olden days, it fumbled the console war in subsequent generations, allowing PlayStation to come in and just dominate the market. And then by the time the Xbox released and Nintendo brought out the GameCube, the market had just become way too competitive, and Sega just didn't have an edge. Even though the Sega Dreamcast was a great console, it didn't sell as well as it needed to, and Sega left the console manufacturing business altogether. They pivoted to instead becoming a software-only company, focusing on developing games for what was previously their competition. It's like the old saying goes, if you can't beat them, sell games on their platform. And it looks to me like this is where Xbox is headed. And it's not terribly surprising when you consider that both Sony and Microsoft adopted a razor and blades business model with its hardware in order to remain in competition with each other for so many years. That's when the hardware is sold at a loss. Every Xbox, every PlayStation, these companies are actually losing money when they sell these units. That's why their prices are so competitive. But then they make huge profits on game sales, online subscriptions, everything else that comes with actually playing a game on your console. Now, I am oversimplifying a bit. Over a long period of time, yes, console sales become more profitable, but that's also under the assumption that you are continuing to move units after many years. And at that point, you're in a race to release the next generation of console, which, again, will initially be at a loss. Because if you don't release a next gen, your competition will, and they're going to get an early market share. Both the PS5 and Xbox Series XS released in November 2020, and since then, the PS5 has moved 53 million units, while Xbox has moved about half of that, 27 million. And during the Christmas season of 2023, that gap widened in favor of PlayStation. Just a couple months after the release of Starfield, which was meant to move Xbox units. And these numbers roughly parallel the Xbox One and PS4 sales figures, with estimates suggesting twice as many PS4s sold compared to Xbox Ones. And the Xbox One was considered to be a misstep for Xbox because in the previous generation, sales between the Xbox 360 and PS3 were nearly tied. And this is because the Xbox 360 was a huge improvement over the original Xbox, whereas the PS3 was pretty much a disaster for Sony. The PS2, by comparison, that was, I think it is actually, the best-selling console of all time. 150 million units sold. So let's go back in time here. You're Microsoft, you release the Xbox. It's your first console. It does well. It beats the Nintendo GameCube and the Sega Dreamcast. Your only competition left is Sony, and you're gunning for them. You release the Xbox 360. You almost quadruple the sales of the original Xbox, and now you are tied with Sony's PS3 sales for number one. In 2 generations, you are now tied for top in this space. So you're thinking, Gen 3, that's when we win. That's when we take the number one spot. Then you release the confusingly named Xbox One, while PlayStation releases the PS4. Not only do you fail to tie Sony this generation, you don't even sell more units than the Xbox 360, while the PS4 approaches PS2 levels of success. You figure, okay, we had a bad year, we'll get them next time. You release the even more confusingly named Xbox Series X/S. Sony releases the PS5. 3 years later, it's looking like a repeat of the previous generation. Sony is doubling your numbers. All of a sudden you're realizing, dang, maybe the fluke wasn't our bad year. Maybe the fluke was Sony's bad year. So now, what do? Do you double down? Do you try even harder for the next generation? Or do you just throw in the towel? If you don't give up now, how many more times do you try to bridge the gap before you do give up? Now again, this is all rumors and speculation, but there are multiple leaks corroborating each other. And one of those leaks claims that Xbox had an announcement planned for the end of February to discuss all this, but that following the leaks, they are pushing up that announcement. And, surprise, surprise, Xbox boss Phil Spencer then tweets out, quote, "We're listening and we hear you. We've been planning a business update event for next week, where we look forward to sharing more details with you about our vision for the future of Xbox." Stay tuned. He knows these rumors are out there. He knows what people are thinking. If the rumors aren't true, then he could have made some statement about that. Instead, he's letting us stew on this for a whole week. And that suggests to me that these aren't just rumors. Now, PlayStation fans should not be celebrating this. This is bad for gamers. Because even though PlayStation has been beating Xbox, Xbox was still major competition for Sony. And competition is good for the consumer. It means better products at better prices. If Sony doesn't have to worry about what the price of an Xbox will be, they can jack up the price on the next PlayStation. They can jack up the price of their subscription services. They can jack up the price of the games. They can let quality slide because what are you going to do? Not own a console? Because while PC is in some way competition, for many people, they are just console gamers. They don't want to fuss with a PC. It's too much. Don't want to do it. Consoles are just easy. Even though consoles have really arguably become as complicated as PCs now, where you got to download games and firmware updates and all that, there still is a solid core of people who are just console and not PC players. They don't even see the PC as an alternative. But what do you folks think about all of this? Do you think the rumors are true? Do you think Xbox is planning to exit the console market? Are you unhappy or are you happy about that? Sound off in the comments. Then in some Blizzard news, video game journalist Jason Schreier has announced his third book, Play Nice: The Rise, Fall, and Future of Blizzard Entertainment, which will release on October 8th. And he's already had to change the ending given the recent layoffs and new Blizzard president, which we discussed in this video over here. Now, the name Jason Schreier ought to be familiar to you. I often talk about his insights. He's well connected in the industry. He has a lot of insider sources, and he's known for his big investigative pieces that bring to light some of the juicy details about some of the games and companies we're most interested in. His first book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, focused on the video game creation process, while his second book, the New York Times bestseller Press Reset: Ruin and Recovery in the Video Game Industry, focused on the volatile nature of the industry. Now, in an interview with Forbes, Schreier said that his newest book, focusing exclusively on Blizzard, covers both the boardroom drama as well as the struggles of creative collaboration. He conducted 300 different interviews to get all this info. And while we do have a good idea of what happened to Blizzard over the years, I'm sure there's going to be some spicy revelations in there. He promises to answer a lot of questions, including exactly why did Mike Morhaime leave Blizzard? How many of Blizzard's problems were caused by Activision and how many were self-inflicted? Why did Project Titan fall apart and how did it turn into Overwatch? Again, we have theories and we have heard snippets here and there about all of this, but Schreier does deep investigative pieces that always unearth new juicy details. And speaking of Blizzard, onto some Diablo 4 news. There's been some new drama revolving around the release date of the Gauntlet, which is a leaderboard activity that was promised to come later in Season 3. While we previously had no official start date for the Gauntlet, people recently noticed that about 2 weeks ago, Diablo boss Rod Ferguson was on the official Xbox podcast, during which he said that the Gauntlet would launch on February 13th. And they also showed what I believe to be exclusive teaser footage that confirmed this date. Again, no one seemed to really notice this for a while until a few days ago when it was picked up by some streamers and that date was spread around. Following this, Rod Ferguson tweeted, quote, "Great seeing the excitement about the Gauntlet and leaderboards. We're still on track for Season 3, but decided to take a bit more time to polish a few things up. So it won't be launching on February 13th as I mentioned on a recent podcast. We'll share more details and the new date soon." And this has been received poorly by the people already upset about Season 3. Leaderboards are something some players have been waiting for a long time. We're 7 months post-launch of Diablo 4 and they still need a bit more time for polish. Now, I personally expect a delay of 1 week. I think we're going to see a February 20th launch, but we'll learn more soon enough. But the apparent inconsistency that people are pointing out is that we were previously told that the Gauntlet would launch later in the season in order to give people time to reach level 100. But now they're saying they need more time to polish, which suggests that we wouldn't have been ready at season start anyway. Now, on top of this, I'm hearing suggestions as well to just mulligan the whole season, give up on it, don't release anything else during the season, regroup, and put all your efforts into a strong Season 4. That's when the itemization rework is happening, which is looking to address a fundamental part of the game, what I believe to be the game's biggest issue. And this rework has the potential to really turn things around for D4. And I can see pros and cons to delaying the Gauntlet. If another 2 months of development on the Gauntlet will result in significant improvements to the Gauntlet, or if it buys us enough time for the devs to implement a PTR to beta test it, then yes, I'd say it's better to delay the Gauntlet to Season 4. But if we're just delaying the Gauntlet for the sake of delaying it, if we're not getting a PTR, if the devs feel that it currently is ready and they wouldn't really benefit from 2 more months of development time without first getting players in there and trying it out, then I think delaying the Gauntlet is actually worse. Because Season 4 is already bringing a huge change with itemization, if we can't get a PTR for the Gauntlet, then let Season 3 be the PTR for the Gauntlet, so that by Season 4, the devs can act on any feedback to make the Gauntlet perfect. If too much is changing all at once in Season 4, we get a season theme, we get the Gauntlet, we get the itemization rework, then if any one of those big things turn out poorly, it can cast a pall over the entire season launch. If we can at least ensure that the Gauntlet will be good by Season 4, then that's one unknown variable that we have controlled for. Hell, maybe we try the Gauntlet in Season 3, and it turns out everyone hates it and it's terrible, and they don't even bring it back in Season 4. I don't think that'll be the case, but you never know, and at least trying it first, we'll know, okay, let's keep that out of Season 4. I'll also bring up here some criticism that I don't really see people talking about, and it's about messaging and communication. I feel as though something as important as the start date for one of the most anticipated features of the game should not be buried in a third-party podcast. If someone is going to get an exclusive scoop on that, that's fine, but at least signal boost the podcast. Tell us, hey, there's going to be exclusive content in here, go check that out, so that we can learn this very important information right away, as opposed to 10 days later, someone notices, oh, by the way, yeah, they just casually dropped this info. We've technically known this for 10 days. Now, if it was Raw just accidentally slipping up, saying the date when he shouldn't have, that's one thing. It's hard to keep track of what is public and what isn't, but I don't think that's the case because they had a graphic prepared and everything with the date on it that they showed in the podcast. Now, this week we also got the start of the Lunar Awakening event, during which you can farm a few new cosmetics. It's an improvement over the Midwinter Blight event. The most effective way to grind Midwinter Blight was to engage in otherwise unrewarding activities, and it took well over 7 hours for the average player to unlock all the cosmetics. This time around, about 2 hours of normal play, just doing what you normally do, is pretty much all you need to unlock all the cosmetics. There are fewer cosmetics to get than a Midwinter Blight, but also the farming is just faster. What you want to do is craft or find nightmare sigils, be it vaults or dungeons, with the Ancestors' Favor affix. This means that lunar shrines will appear in those vaults. Then you farm up cosmetics by killing monsters while you're under the effects of a lunar shrine. You also get an XP boost and a move speed boost while under the effects of the shrine. And my takeaway from the event was, this has made my regular gameplay slightly more enjoyable because I am sometimes getting a bigger power boost than normal by clicking on shrines. If you stop playing Season 3, this isn't going to bring you back, but if you're still playing, it's a nice little buff. It does seem in general, though, that people are not happy with the event. Some people are complaining about the XP buff. They thought that it would be a buff that'd be up at all times, not just under the shrine effects. Then there's an issue with running into shrines in the overworld. People are thinking that the shrines are bugged because they're supposed to spawn monsters, and they often don't. I don't believe they're bugged. It's just that there's a cooldown. When someone clicks a shrine, it'll spawn monsters, and then it cannot spawn monsters again for, I don't know if it's 30 seconds or a minute or something. You notice this if you're running in a party in a nightmare dungeon in a vault. The first person to click the shrine spawns the monsters, the others don't spawn it. So what happens in the overworld? One of 20 random people running around clicks the shrine, gets the monsters. By the time you get there, you click the shrine, no monsters spawn, no monsters all around. You think it's bugged, it's a feels bad moment because you're running around, you're not finding monsters, your 30 seconds are rapidly ticking away, which is again why I suggest experiencing this event in vaults, in nightmare dungeons, in your private instances. That's peak gameplay for this event. There's also a bug with the protection shrine. It's not correctly applying invulnerability against all effects. So again, little things here and there are causing people gripes. And the bit of criticism that I agree with the most is that the event bounty board rewards just give you a laughable amount of gold. The tier 1 rewards are 10,000 gold, which like a monster will drop that in one go. And the highest tier reward is 300,000 gold, which, one round of Whispers, one Nightmare Dungeon, anything is going to give you multiples, 10 times or more of that amount. Now, we saw the same thing happen with the Midwinter event. The gold rewards are very small. At the time, I said, okay, well, These numbers make sense in the context of Season 1. Season 2, we got massive buffs to how much gold we get and in different activities. So it could be they just weren't able to update those numbers in time. It was an oversight. That's fine. Well, now we're on the second event and it's still not been fixed. Simple fix, just times 100 those numbers. Now again, outside of that, it's really fast to farm up everything you need for this event, right? Couple hours of regular play. Maybe if you're going very casual about it, it can take a bit more, but you got 2 weeks to do it. The Lunar New Year event ends on February 20th, which is the day before the launch of Last Epoch. And speaking of Last Epoch, again, the upcoming RPG launches February 21st at 11 a.m. CST. Twitch drops will begin on February 22nd at 12:01 a.m. CST. Be sure to link up your Twitch account so that you can farm up those cosmetics. Link to that in the description. Every day until February 26th at 12:01 a.m. CST, you'll have a unique cosmetic to unlock by watching drops-enabled Twitch streamers. And the week after, you'll have a second chance at grabbing any cosmetics you missed. I do plan on streaming Last Epoch at launch. I just hope the servers hold up because I know there's a lot of interest in the game and running a multiplayer game is hard. Speaking of which, in Palworld news, the devs are spending nearly $500,000 every month to keep their servers online. The boss gave the team the order to ensure the servers never go down, no matter what. And since the game has surpassed 19 million players on PC and Xbox, well, we've reached a monthly server cost of $478,000. Of course, as hype for the game dies down, so will the server costs, but still, that's a lot more expensive than I thought it was to run multiplayer game servers. And in our last story, in another survival game, Enshrouded, we have an update from the devs on the quest progression issues that players have brought up. As a reminder, I have a video with an overview of what Enshrouded is all about over here, and I've now streamed it a couple times on Twitch, playing with viewers. We got a nice little world going. We've been having a great time. For an early access launch, Enshrouded is doing very well. It has very positive reviews on Steam, and the major pain point that I see brought up is revolving around quest progression being server-based for multiplayer games. Meaning, if you're not logged in to a server when a quest is completed, then you cannot complete that quest on that server. You can always go create a private game, take your character there, complete the quest there, then return to the other server, but nonetheless, it can create some issues depending on how you want to play the game. Well, this is what the devs had to say. We have received feedback from players about the quest progression of Enshrouded. Many of you are frustrated with the fact that it is currently mainly server-side instead of player-side. We have some good news to share. When designing the system, we believed that the best way to enjoy Enshrouded was with a group of friends who are all working cooperatively together. However, we know that having quests completed while one player is offline might feel bad for those who feel they are missing parts of the gameplay experience. We designed Enshrouded as a co-op game. While working on it, we envisioned one group of friends experiencing the world together, sharing bases, resources, crafting recipes, and loot. Furthermore, we wanted players to be able to play together meaningfully with different groups of friends and on different servers. We developed a game environment where a new player could join a long-running server and jump into the same action as their friends, skipping the tutorial server quests to instead learn through conversation and cooperation, uniting the group. Our reasoning was that players shouldn't feel forced to participate in quests. Our player base is diverse after all. Not everyone is bound to enjoy our combat or puzzles as much as building a base or exploring. If some players in a group want to focus on building or farming, while others are going on adventures, both making meaningful progress for the group, that should be fine. However, we are now exploring ways to implement the following options for player-based quest progression. Here's a quick overview. We want to offer an option to be able to personally complete every quest. We want to improve the quest log to better communicate the state of each quest in terms of server versus personal progression. We want to reduce respawn timers so that players can easily replay any quests. We currently do not have an exact timeline for the implementation of these improvements, but work on these features has already started. One last thing, we want to point out that the system as it is now will not be replaced, as many players like it as it is. Our goal with these changes is to offer players additional options to enjoy Enshrouded and its quests. And I think this is great. I'm all for more options. I like the fact that this new system won't replace the previous one, and that's what I want to see, just more options. More settings for server owners, like setting respawn timers, for instance. Great to see the devs so in tune with the community. Great to hear the reasoning for why things are the way they are, and honestly, they've really sold me on their idea. But even though they have solid reasoning for having done things the way they are, they're still listening and acting upon community feedback. And with that, we're going to wrap up this week's video. As a reminder, folks, I'll be away on a business trip for a few days, but my schedule should return to normal next week. In the meantime, do be sure to check out last week's video in which we discussed the new president of Blizzard. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. And subscribe to join Rhykkers Raiders for more gaming content.